everybody, my name is Lori and welcome to the Icing Artist. So this week on the Icing Artist, I'm going to be doing a big 3D cake. Now this is an alien called O from the new movie Home, and I'm actually going to be working with Sharon today over at Creative Cakes by Sharon. We're both going to be making these wonderful 3D themed cakes, so this is what she's going to be making for you.
Sharon made this wonderful two-sided O. So when he's happy, he's purple, but when he gets frightened or angry, he turns this orangey yellow. So she made a two-sided cake for you. Don't forget to watch her tutorial to see exactly how she made this cake and subscribe to her channel because she has wonderful cakes and creations on there, so you definitely don't want to miss any of them.
So we're going to be doing the birthday theme O. So he's got a fondant birthday hat and his streamers and everything, and this one is all purple. So let's get started and I'll show you how to make this one.
So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make my birthday hat. So I'm going to use a piece of paper towel and a cardboard birthday hat I just bought at the dollar store, and I'm going to use this to make my template. And you just want to line it up like this, and then you can go ahead and cut it out. And that way we know it will wrap around our birthday hat perfectly and be the right shape. I'm going to make mine yellow because when he changes color, he turns to yellow. So I thought I would make a matching color of yellow to kind of complement him. I'm going to dust it with some icing sugar so that way it does not stick to my birthday hat, and just wrap it around and use some water as my glue to kind of adhere my fondant together. Now to dress my birthday hat up a little bit, I'm going to cut out some blue and red circles. And again, just use some water and glue those onto my birthday hat. You want to make your birthday hat at least 3 days in advance so that way it's nice and hard and dry and sits on your cake properly. So you need to plan ahead a little bit. So I've just printed out a full size version of O, and this is the exact size I'm going to make my cake. For my cake board, I'm using a 1-inch thick piece of MDF, and I'm just going to trace a 5-inch wide cake board onto that. Now I'm going to use a circle cutter that's as wide as O's feet, and I'm just going to trace out 6 little circles for his legs and 2 dowels in the middle, so that way my cake kind of goes up straight. We're going to drill those holes afterwards. I'm just going to mark center on the hole, and then using a 1/4-inch drill bit, I'm going to drill all the holes as well as into my cake boards. And this is what it's going to look like when you kind of put it all together. I'm going to continue drilling the other holes, going around for my tentacles or his legs or whatever you want to call them. Make sure you wipe your board down nice and clean so that we don't have any dust on it. Using some gel paste, I'm just going to wet it so my fondant will stick to it, rolling out some yellow fondant and then roll that over my cake board. Going to make it nice and smooth and then trim off the excess. I'm just using a paintbrush and I'm going to poke through the back of my cake board just so I can see where those holes were. I'm going to measure his legs, which are 2.5 inches, plus my 1-inch cake board. So I'm going to want 3.5-inch dowels. You're going to need 6 of those. So I've gone ahead and cut them, and I'm just going to hammer them into my cake board. You're going to need 4 pounds of purple fondant to make this cake, and then you're going to need about 2-ounce balls, and you're going to need to make 6 of those, and these are going to be for his legs. We're going to roll those out into little logs and then just kind of screw them onto our dowels, and that's going to be for his little tentacles. And then I'm going to mark out his height and then cut my dowel. I'm just using 1/4-inch dowels. I'm going to sharpen the one end so that way my cake slides onto it nice and easily. I'm going to wet a thin strip of yellow fondant, and this is to kind of camouflage the dowel in between his legs so you can't really see it. So I'm just going to hammer those 2 into my cake board. And then I'm going to start assembling my cake. So I'm just going to place my 6-inch little thin cake board on top of that. And I'm going to place some parchment paper over my cake board so that way I don't get any nice crumbs or icing or anything on it. And now I'm going to start stacking up my cake. So I'm just going to do a layer of cake and then a layer of buttercream and a layer of cake. I'm using 6-inch round cakes for the bottom and then continuing up my cake using 8-inch round cakes. In the middle, I'm going to dowel it just as you would dowel a 2-tier cake. I'm just using straws to dowel it and then putting another cake board on top of that. continuing with my buttercream and cake, and buttercream and cake and buttercream and cake, until your cake is nice and tall. I decided to add a little chocolate cake in there for extra flavor at the top. And now we're ready to carve our O. So I've got my picture here to make sure I've got the right height and the width and everything. So I'm going to start tapering my cake down towards the bottom of the cake board, because he actually tapers down towards the cake board. And I'm just going to round off his head a little bit so he doesn't have any harsh edges. And then on the top of the cake, I'm just going to mark center and just carve out a little section here, because his head actually kind of dips in on the top of it. I'm going to carve out a little spot where his eyes are going to sit. And there you go. So now I'm ready to crumb coat my cake. A crumb coat is just a thin coat of buttercream, coating the entire cake to kind of trap in all the crumbs before we do a final coat of buttercream or before you cover it in fondant. To smooth it down, I'm just using some paper towel. I'm just rubbing it over my cake and kind of gently peeling it up, and that's going to leave a nice and smooth crumb coat, so that way I don't have any nice bumps or anything, because that will all show through when we put our fondant on. I'm ready to move that parchment paper, and just using a brush, I'm just going to brush away any of the crumbs or icing or anything. Make sure my cake board's still nice and clean. And then I'm just going to wet the crease between his head and his body with some water so my fondant will stick to it. Now I'm ready to roll out my purple fondant. I'm going to roll that out relatively thin. Roll it over my rolling pin and then roll it back over his head. I'm going to trim off some of that excess right away just to get some of the weight off of it so it doesn't rip, tear, or crack. And then using a ball of fondant, I'm going to help push the fondant into the creases and where his mouth is going to be and where all the kind of divots in his face are going to be and stuff. And then using my hands, I'm just going to smooth it down to my cake. And then just cut more of the excess off. I'm just going to look at the picture of O and try to mark out where his mouth is going to be. I'm doing this using a veining tool. And now I'm going to make his little kind of smile marks, his little goofy smirk marks he has in his smile. And for O's body, you're going to need 3.5 pounds of blue fondant. And I'm just going to roll this out into a long, wide strip. And this is going to be his kind of clothing that's going to wrap around him. So I'm just going to roll my small rolling pin back and forth across the width and the length of it, making sure it's nice and long. And I've just cut out a template out of parchment paper that I've wrapped around O to make sure it's long enough to wrap around him. And that's so I don't have too much excess and too much heavy fondant when I'm trying to wrap it around his body. And I've already wet my cake, so that way my fondant will stick to it. And I'm just rolling it around my cake. This is the easiest way to get the fondant around O. You definitely don't want to try to lift it up and wrap it around with your arms. That wouldn't work out too well. So I've just decided to do it like that. Make sure it's nice and smooth. And I'm just using my fondant smoother to make sure it's smooth everywhere and we don't have any divots or bumps in it. I'm going to cut off the excess. For O's arms, you're going to need 2 balls of fondant, about 4 ounces each. And I'm just going to place my arms kind of beside my O picture's arm. And that's going to make sure I can get the exact shape and everything and the width of his arms. Using my paring knife, I'm just going to cut out little lines for his fingers. And then just smooth them out until they're nice and round. To make sure my arms stick on properly to my cake, I'm just going to stick some toothpicks into the side of it, and you just want to make sure you take the arms off before you cut your cake. I'm also going to wet them with water. I was worried that they might fall off because they are very heavy, so I did want to make sure I had that extra bit of stability. I'm going to mark out where his front kind of button is, just with a circle, and then roll out that's kind of a brighter color of purple fondant. And then cut out my circle. Smooth out the edges so that way they're nice and smooth and round. And wet it with some water and then stick it onto my cake. Now using my veining tool, I'm going to draw that little kind of squiggly line that he has on his front button, which I'm not really sure what it does. Maybe it'll say in the movie. And then I'm going to roll out a very long kind of log of this brighter purple. And then cut these little lines in it. And this is going to be for the stitching that goes around all of his clothes. So I'm just going to wet it with some water and then start wrapping these around. The nice thing about this, because they have the lines in it, you can't really see the start and stop points, so you don't have to worry about doing it in one long strip. You can do it in sections. And that wraps around the top of the cake and around his arms and the bottom. For his mouth, I've rolled out some black fondant, and I'm just going to cut out, I guess, this kind of flat lemon shape. I'm going to wet his mouth and then just place that inside. And I'm going to use some pink fondant for his tongue. Again, just stick it on using some water. And for his teeth, I want to make sure I had the exact kind of teeth in this right smile for him. So I'm just using my piece of paper and I'm just putting my fondant on top of that and creating all of my little teeth shapes. And then I can place those right onto my cake. Using your picture is a great way to make sure that you're getting the kind of exact cake that you're looking for, because you can check the height and the width and all the different sizes of everything and make sure you have all the proper proportions. And I'm going to measure out his eyes and just cut out some white circles and glue those onto my cake. I'm going to give him some little purple eyelids. And for his eyes, you want to layer these up. So I've got like a royal blue circle and a sky blue circle and then a black. So I'm just going to layer those up to give his eye a nice bit of depth. And glue those on. And with characters, you always need that little speck of white on their eyes to really kind of bring them to life. For O's little kind of antennas, you're going to need 2 3-ounce balls of fondant. I'm going to roll those out into a log, except this one I want tapered. I'm going to flatten the one end and wet it with some water. And then I'm going to kind of roll it up like a cinnamon bun. And flatten the one end. And you want to make 2 kind of opposite sides, like this. And again, I'm just going to use some toothpicks to stick them onto his head because they are quite heavy. And there we go. There is our O. And then you can see what he looks like compared to the picture. Now I'm ready to stick my birthday hat on it. So my birthday hat is nice and dry, so I'm just going to take it out of its form. And then stick it onto my cake. And if you're traveling with your cake, you want to just place the birthday hat when you get there. And I'm going to stick this little noisemaker kind of streamer in his mouth, so he is all ready for his party. And while I was editing O, I found this really cool visual effect that makes him change color, so I thought I would add that in because I thought it was really fun.
I hope this cake makes you guys want to put your hands up in the air like you just do not care. I love the birthday theme. I think this is going to be a birthday cake. It's great to tie in the theme of the party. And if you don't want to do a fondant hat, just whatever hats you're doing for your birthday party, stick one on your O. I hope you guys really liked it. And don't forget to head on over to Sharon's channel and check out her video because she did a wonderful version of this cake as well. And if you're new to my channel, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today and watching. I put out new cake decorating videos every single Tuesday, all different types of stuff. So head on over my channel and check out what other kind of videos I have going on. And if you like everything, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you guys don't miss a video. Thank you guys again so much for watching, and I'll see you guys all later.
Click here to check out how Sharon made her candy-filled 2-sided O cake. Thank you guys again so much for watching. Don't forget to click here to subscribe, and you can click here for last week's video. Bye everybody.